Hi, International Grandmaster Ron W. Henley, and welcome once again to OnlineChessLessons.net coverage of the 2012 World Chess Olympiad. Today's action from round 4 sees the U.S. playing on the top board, fighting for first place against a very powerful team from India, with Gata KAmsky on board 2 going down, getting squeezed, and ultimately losing, and boards 3 and 4 ending in draws. It was up to American superstar GM Hikaru Nakamura to save the day for the US. Let's take a look. He had the white pieces, e4, knight f3, knight c6, d4. He plays the Scotch game. And of course he did work with Kasparov briefly a few years back, and I'm sure he picked up some good ideas in this variation. Knight f6, the Mises variation, with takes, and e5. This brought Kasparov some very critical victories in his 1990 World Championship match against Karpov in New York and Lyon. So let's see. Black pins the pawn on e5, and white unpins. Now the downside of this, of course, is it boxes in both of the bishops. Knight goes to d5, and c4, chasing the knight again, and then knight goes to b6, knight c3, bishop b7, bishop f4, castles, castles. So the plus side and the downside here is that this knight on b6 sometimes can become a bit vulnerable. g5, bishop g3, h5, chasing the bishop, threatening to trap it, and then h4, g4. Now this position was seen once before, after king b1, bishop g7. Hikaru now plays queen e3. This prepares developing his bishop, mobilizing his rook, and completing his centralization. Previously seen in this position instead of queen e3 was f4, connecting and protecting like this. After rook at h to e8, queen c2 contains potential threat to pop in down here or to f5. Both these squares are now vulnerable to the white queen. f6, bishop d3, f takes e5, and rook at h1, and white's beautifully centralized, looks to recoup his pawn on e5 and claim a slight edge. This was in fact the game Asmundsen versus Winnewater, Seniors World Championship 2003. And that game actually turned out to be a short story after bishop f6, eyeing the h4 pawn, queen f2, protecting, queen g7, and now white showed the potential Achilles heel of black's setup with the nice c5 thrust. The knight, of course, only has two choices, back to a8, which is not really a choice, or up to d5. And after knight d5, cd5, white struck with the beautiful c6, clearing the line to a7 for the queen, and also threatening the bishop and threatening the pawn. If bishop c6, queen a7, just simply threatens crushing attack with bishop a6 check, the black king is definitely in trouble here. And so in the game after c6, d takes c6, white simply retook the pawn on e5. If the bishop retreats, white can simply play queen a7. He's got, an extra pawn, weak black king, bishop a6 threatened, it's all good. So after f takes e5 in the game, black tried to maintain material balance with bishop takes e5, but unfortunately, queen f5 check. That was a quick knockout. That was again the game Asmundsen Miniwater. So I'm sure Hikaru was familiar with this game, but instead of f4, he elected to play queen e3, looking to play bishop d3, rook h1, and complete the mobilization of his forces. After rook at d to e8, black's threatening the pawn e3 times, white defends. Now black plays c5, opening the diagonal for his bishop. Now Hikaru shows another idea. He plays a4, threatening simply to play a5 and exploit the weak knight on b6. Black, for his part, chips away at the center. And now Hikaru continues with a5. Black plays knight d7, and now knight b5, and this knight swings into action. The threat is to play possibly knight takes c7, and of course king takes would run into pawn takes pawn check, and knight a7 check is a threat as well. Black really has no choice but to accept the pawn on e5, and now Hikaru plays a very interesting move, queen b3. Puts his queen on the b file to cut off the black king's escape, and he also unleashes a pin on this knight. Here, black plays bishop a8. Probably not the best. Better was a6. And then I think Hikaru's idea was that he wanted to try and capture on e5, so that if bishop takes, he has knight check, and then the king is either forced into a fork or has to abandon his bishop. But nonetheless, he could play like this, and the position's only slightly better for white. After a6, rook e5, though, black has a very nice resource here. He could play bishop e4, check. And after rook takes, queen takes, bishop d3, simply queen back to b7. Very, very nice resource. After, for example, bishop takes d6, a b5, bishop c5, white probably has compensation for the pawn, but probably the game is about equal. Anyway, though, black didn't play a6. Instead, he played bishop a8, and now, after the powerful thrust f4, attacking the pinned knight here, we can see black had no choice but to take, and now suddenly the white position is very active. Bishop h3 check is threatened, f4 is in the air, knight a7 check, and suddenly the king down here is a bit exposed. Black played queen f6. Maybe f5 deserved attention. Now knight a7 check, king d8, and now he eliminates this knight, and after rook takes, plays queen b8 check, king d7, and now bishop h3 check. We can see the white pieces cooperating at full efficiency. Black felt obligated to interpose the rook because if king over, queen c7 check is just very strong for white. So after bishop h3 check, rook back to e6, queen b5 check. Well, black doesn't want to play c6 and block in his bishop for life, so he played king e7. But now, time to scoop a little material with bishop takes e6, f takes e6, and rook at h to g1. This rook is very useful, keeping an eye on this bishop. After rook d8, well, black does have a couple of bishops. The knight on a7 needs to get back into the game, and so Hikaru decides to go ahead and play knight c6 check, return the exchange after bishop takes. Of course, he can't play queen takes b2 mate, but his idea with knight c6 check was that after bishop takes, rook takes check, he gives back the exchange, and on queen takes, he now plays queen takes c6. And Hikaru's assessment of this position was spot on. White is definitely better. Threatens the c7 pawn. He also threatens to motor up the board with this a pawn. a6, a7, a8. Simple as that. Black's only chance is to centralize his queen and try and get counterplay against the white king. Notice if queen g3, rook e4 is probably good enough. So after queen c6, queen d4, now he played a6. It's possible rook c1 was slightly stronger. After a6, queen d3 check, king a1, he plays queen d2. Attacking the rook on e1, threatening queen a5 check, trying to help fight against his passed pawn. But now, Hikaru very nicely lines up on the e-file against the e6 point. Black has to flee, and then here, both sides a bit short on time, Hikaru makes an inexactitude. He plays a7. He should have gone ahead and taken on e6 check, and after king c6, queen e4, he would have the same position, except he would have already removed the pawn on e6. So really not clear what Hikaru was thinking there. In the game, he played a7 first, and after rook a8, black threatens to take his pawn and actually checkmate white. King b1. He now blunders horrifically with 1 minute left on his clock, and black plays rook takes a7. The correct path here was he should simply play e5 and preserve the e-pawn. After f4, e takes f4, rook to g1, threatens to come in, but then he has the very nice queen d4. Of course not rook takes, rook check, and the king gets into a mating net here. Something like this. So again, instead of rook a7, horrible time pressure blunder with 1 minute left on his clock, he should have played e5, and on f, rook g1, the very nice centralizing queen d4. Then, for example, queen a8, queen g1 check, king a2, and very important, queen d1, threatening a perpetual back and forth. This would have been black's best chance. Instead, after the horrific rook a7, queen e6 check, king c6, and notice king d8, queen e8 mate. And after king c6, queen e8 check, probably the move that Sasikiran overlooked. And after queen e8 check, in fact, black resigned. If king b6, queen b5 is a very famous epaulette mate formation. And after queen e8 check, king b7, queen b5 check, king c8, rook e8 mate. Shows nice coordination between the white queen and rook. So huge win for Hikaru, keeping the US level at 2-2 and in the fight for first place in the 2012 World Chess Olympiad. Again, I'm International Grandmaster Ron W. Henley, and thank you for joining OnlineChessLessons.net.